Welcome to another inspiring episode of Podcast with Sheila, the podcast that is spreading positivity around the world by sharing inspiring life experiences. With me today is a man who did not allow life's challenges to overcome him. As usual, we aim to educate, motivate, and inspire you. So if you're looking for any of that, then you're in the right place. Grab your warm drinks and let's get it going. Hello, Matthew, and welcome to Podcast with Sheila.
Hi, it's nice to be with you.
Great. For those who are meeting you for the first time, do you mind introducing yourself, a little bit about your background, where you're from, and what shaped your early life?
So I'm from Kentucky in the United States. Um, I grew up in a pretty rural area. I got out of there at 16. I went to college early across the state. Um, Now I go to the University of Louisville. I'm pursuing a master's degree. My early life is one of, I guess, a lot of tension. My parents got divorced at a young age, or when I was a young age, and so there was a lot of tension in the house and family issues, and that, you know, was stressful and things I had to overcome. But uh, I have ADHD, and which is a learning disability, and so I needed special help, which is goes into me overcoming a lot of things. Sorry, my cat's over here. Um, and so I had to really work harder than other people to even get into the college early like I did. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm glad you mentioned that your parents got divorced earlier, and I'd like us to talk
Mhm,
about that a little bit. That wasn't
mhm.
part of my initial questions,
Oh,
but that
yeah.
has come up. Yeah, and I want
Yeah.
us to talk about it because I see that the divorce rate is getting high, quite high in recent
Yeah.
times, and I want us to dwell on the fact that broken families have a massive impact on the children.
Mhm.
And as you being somebody who's experienced it first time, share your experience with us when your parents divorced. How did it affect your personal life, your school life, and everything else?
Well, so both my parents were quite young. My mother was like 22, I think, when she had me, and my dad was like 21. Um, They didn't come from the best households themselves, so there was a lot of, like, arguing, and they weren't really fully, like, emotionally developed, I wouldn't say, and, I remember vaguely I was really young, I was 4 and my sister, she was 2, and so I remember being, like, there to kinda comfort her, and I kind of had to grow up and be and the I guess the man or the adult at 4, you know what I mean? And so that was really stressful. Um, I I don't remember a lot from that time, but I know there was a lot of arguing, and I've been told by other family members that I, you know, kind of dealt with it better than Abby, my sister. Um, but actually, I mean, I don't my mother ended up getting married to this other, person, my stepdad, and they were divorced and remarried, like, twice. So, it was really stressful, and I think that also that pain, because my father, his dad, um, never got divorced, and he's still not divorced from his wife, and I don't I think he did that out of, like, cultural reasons, like, he's Catholic, and so I don't think he believed in divorce, even if he wasn't happy or different things like that. And I think my dad kind of internalized that, and so there's a lot of pain and anger that was directed towards us, my sister and I, and from, I think, that pain of being divorced. Um, it was really stressful, and it put a lot of stress on me, and I already have a lot of, like, really high anxiety, and so that kind of added to everything in school, and then going between different households, um, was a big deal. And at one age, I just stopped going to my dad's because it was easier just to stay at one house. Um, but I think it had a significant impact on me.
Well, I'm happy that you shared your experience firsthand. At least if the parents are listening, or even the parents gets to listen to it later on, we have to know that when we're making some of these decisions, it
Yeah,
affects the children. So as much as possible, let's try and work it out rather
yeah,
than break up the family for everybody to go their separate ways.
yeah.
I'll go back now to the questions I was meant to ask you. I've seen a few people putting questions beneath here. It's not a therapy session. Podcast with Sheila is that podcast where we bring special guests on board to share their real life experiences. We want to encourage people to know that whatever you're going through, people have been there and they've dealt with it better. So when you hear other people's stories and how they've dealt with it, you would also be able to navigate your path through the muddy waters wherever you find yourself. Basically, that is what is happening here. So when you type out your messages at the bottom, I may not be able to answer you just because I don't want to break the flow. But hopefully, if there's time, we'll come back to your questions and pick a few important questions and address them. So you mentioned having been overweight or borderline obese twice in your life. Can you take us through those periods? What triggered the weight gain and how have you managed it, or how were you able to manage to lose it um, through minimal efforts?
Yeah, so the first time really in my life was when I was still living at home. This was like in middle school into early high school. I think there was a lot of tension in the household, between my father and me, and then between my mother and my stepfather. Um, and I don't know, I'm kind of a spiritual person now, and I look back at it, and at the time I wasn't, but, now I kinda look back at it, and I feel like it's the negativity. So a lot of negativity in the household, I think, will lead to habits where you gain weight, um, because when I was young, I was not very large, like, I was skinny and, so that really personal control, is what I would say helped me lose weight. I just regulated how much I ate, and I had intention with it. So, I would eat, like, once a day, and I would fast a lot. So, fasting, I find, really does help you lose weight. Um, I will say I don't know how it is with women because my girlfriend told me that she was reading some study that, like, fasting helps men lose weight better than women because like, where the body starts eating the fat first. But fasting and just having self-control, and then there was a period of my life when I got accepted to, the early college program that I went to, and a little bit before that, I started losing weight, and into that, I was down to, like, 180, which was pretty good for me, um, and before that, I was up to, like, 220, 225, and that was in early high school, so that's pretty high for in high school, um and then I was in a pretty bad relationship, towards the end of high school into college, and the negativity in that relationship with that person, I'd gained a lot of weight when I was with them. And it's not like the weight that you gain when you're happy. Like, sometimes people there's a happy weight when you're, secure in a relationship. But it was like I shot up from like 180, 190 up to like 230, which that was the highest I was at in my life. And really after I'd met my current girlfriend, which I don't know why she she picked me, especially when I looked like that, but, I guess it's what was underneath, but, um, uh, after I met her, I started losing weight, like, really fast. Like, I was down back to, like, 190. Now I'm up to 200, like, even, which is about 10 pounds I've gained throughout the relationship, but that's been 2 plus years, so I think that's decently healthy. I can always lose more weight and be more healthier, but right now I actually just moved, so um, I'll probably be eating better and less, because I was eating a lot of fast food, and I know in the UK you all probably have a lot of fast food, but here in the United States it's a lot worse. They're everywhere, and it's really bad for you. But um, yeah, I just think self control and like having intention and knowing like why you're doing it. Like, don't do it because you know you hate yourself for your weight, because that's not something that you should feel. It's something that, like, you should just wanna feel better in your body, and I wanted to feel better in my body, and so I guess I set that intention.
Yeah, I think that the life we're living now these days is on a fast pace. Somebody will say
Mhm.
so. Then people just grab and go. But I don't
Yeah.
do fast food. Once in a while I
Yeah.
would, but it's
Yeah.
something I hardly do,
Yeah.
because I feel cooking at home is a bit cheaper based on how you compare.
Mhm.
People may have different ideas to that, but then I prefer to cook. But as you were
Yeah.
talking, I realized that when you're under pressure, that is when you gain weight, or when you're not in the
Mhm.
right positive environment, that is when you gain weight.
Yeah.
So then when you find yourself in the right space
Mhm.
and your head is in the right place, then you
Mhm.
are able to do the right things and not gain weight, because it looks like you eat when you are not in a good mood.
Yeah, yeah, I think that rings true. I think that definitely when I was in those places that I didn't wanna be, I was just eating, especially because I was extremely unhappy in that relationship, and you just kind of fill the void inside of you, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But and it was also the food we were eating, we were eating fast food a lot, and, um, yeah, I think you just have to be in the right place, and I think sometimes people think they're in the right place, and they're not, and that's something that people should think about as well.
great. You say emotional manipulation played a big role in those weight gain episodes. Can you share some of those experiences and how they impacted your mental and physical health?
Um, I would say, like, things like gaslighting, like lying, manipulation. Like, I feel as though people have, like, an intuition, right? And so if you are in my last relationship, I had an intuition there was something going on, but I felt crazy, like, saying that, like, if they were cheating or things like that. And, they would gaslight you or be doing things, and, like, you're just extremely unhappy, you don't really know what's going on, and I think that led to a lot of those issues, which led to me gaining weight, and with family, it's again a lot of gaslighting. I mean, like, I'll say something that happened with my parents that really affects me to this day, that they might just see as a normal Tuesday that they forgot back when I was young, but it really, like, impacted me. And I would say that, and they'd act like it never happened, or they don't know whatever it is, and that type of that just makes you feel like you're crazy as a child, and, things like that, which I don't like talking too in depth about, I guess, my parents just because even though they're not really, that much in my life anymore, I just don't wanna, you know, put that negativity on them, but yeah, there were a lot of issues, I guess, in the family that is just not treating your child the way that you should treat a child, and I think really, it comes to a point where a parent needs to realize that they don't get to decide the parent that their child needs. Their child needs to decide the type of parent that they need, and I think, of course, a parent should be there to guide your child, like, if your kid is like, "Oh, I need a parent who lets me go out and at 12 o'clock at night and drink or whatever at, like, 18," and it's like, maybe you don't need that parent, right? But I think a lot of times if your kid's looking for support, reassurance, things like that, that should be able to be given by the parent, even if the parent doesn't think that, um, that's necessarily what they need to be doing. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know all the therapy terms for the type of emotional abuse, but there was a lot of, like, threats and things like that, which led to those issues, I think.
Right, because you don't want to dwell too much on your parents' issues. I wouldn't like
Yeah.
to either. But
Yeah.
I totally agree with you when you say that parents should be there for their children, and I that
Mhm,
is 100% spot on. That no matter what is going on in the parents' life, they have to put that on the side and be present. And that is why I
mhm,
always say that as parents, we have to take care of ourselves first. Because
mhm.
if I'm not in the right place, definitely I'll not be able to give my best to my child. So we have
Yeah.
to, in whatever situation we find ourselves, we have to make sure that we as parents are in the right place. In that case, we'll
Mhm,
be able to give of our best to the children. And also say that we shouldn't let whatever we are going through affect us to the point where our children would have to be on the receiving end.
Yeah,
because
like
yeah, as we grow up as adults, our
mhm,
lives naturally become complicated, whether we like
mhm,
it or not. And that is where we have to put on our adult thinking cap. And
mhm,
once you start having children, I would say it everywhere, anytime. And I know it's not easy because I'm a mom, I'm a parent as well. But
mhm.
once you become a parent, there are certain things in your life that you probably were doing before you had children that needs to stop immediately,
Yeah, yeah,
especially the negative things.
yeah, I mean, like, there's, like, attitude in the way that you act, but also there's some things, like, I see some parents who which in much of the United States is legal now, but, like, who smoke weed, and they don't stop when they have kids, or people who drink a lot in their 20s, they're partying, and they don't stop when they have kids, and they become alcoholics, or different things like that, and that really leaves a negative impact on the child, um but also, I was telling my nana once that I like, my view as being a parent when I am going to be a parent is that I'm not always going to be dad, right? Like, my kids get to an age where I'm Matthew, and they have to look at me and see me for who I am. I'm not the astronaut or the, pres or, like, whatever big figure that a little kid sees you as, because you know everything to them. But once your kid gets to an age, they have to see you as who you are, and you have to
Exactly.
be happy and you have to want them to be happy with who you are. You have to be content with who you are, and that's something that I think is really important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're spot on with that. And I always say that when my children go to school and you're asking them, what work does your mom do? What tell us about your mom? And they're writing about their mom or their dad or whoever. It
Uh-huh.
should be positive. That alone
Mhm.
rubs off better on the child. The child is always proud to talk about their parents because
Mhm.
what they are seeing, they want to be. My daughter tells me,
Mhm.
Mommy, I want to be like you. And I tell her,
Mhm.
no, I want you to be better than me.
Yeah.
Because I used to say that to my mom when I was younger, that I want to be
Mhm.
like her. And then she said, I want you to be better than me. Obviously,
Mhm.
every mother's prayer or every parent's prayer is that their children become better than them.
Yeah.
So I don't want
Yeah.
her to be like me. I want her to be better than me. So what image is my child seeing?
Mhm.
And what is she wanting to be like? If she's not seeing something good, I don't think she would want to be like me.
Yeah.
So if she was going to be better than me, then it has to be. I should have set up, giving her a pace. So she's
Mhm.
going to be working from where I am now to a place that is better. Now,
Mhm.
if on quote and unquote, if I'm a woman who drinks or
Mhm.
I'm a wayward person, where is
Mhm.
she going to be starting from? What is she looking at? What is she mirroring as a
Yeah.
parent? And that is where most parents may fail or may struggle because
Mhm.
sometimes we allow life's issues to get into us and that sends us down the wrong path. But it's when we find out or we find ourselves and know that we are the rock bottom or wherever we are, we don't want it. And then we
Mhm.
begin to make changes, but we can only make changes when we've accepted that we are in the wrong place.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've noticed that I've changed a lot. Like, so I didn't say I acted the best in the my previous relationship. I'd say that was, like, my reaction to abuse, but I blamed myself and looked at myself negatively for a long time, right? And I think not necessarily beating yourself up is the way to go, but recognizing your wrongs. Even if someone else has done more wrong, even if someone else is wronging you, recognizing what it is that you're doing wrong, um, and changing that, knowing that's bad and changing that. And I think a lot of people, you know, maybe you and I and some other people I know, we think like, oh, that it's normal to like consider what you did and think about it and make changes. But some people don't ever consider their actions. They don't ever think, why did I do this? This is bad. They just think, I did this thing, something bad happened. I don't like that. And then they act negatively and they continue the same negative behavior. And I think that it starts with recognizing what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Accepting that you're wrong and
Yeah.
making up your mind to do something about it.
Yeah.
Wow. What kind of habits did you change that led? to your transformation, and how can others replicate that without going to extremes?
Um, I think positivity, um, and not reacting to whatever's going on, even if you can't get out of that place that you're at or that environment, I think withdrawing yourself from it, not engaging with it, knowing that it's going to be hard not to feel negatively about it, especially if people are saying things to you or acting a type of way to you and you kind of have to turn the other cheek. But just withdrawing yourself, um, setting boundaries as much as you can, and staying determined. So if and it's not always about you know, being overweight. It's not always that was my one of my issues. But people have other issues. I mean, people also will be in negative environments and stop eating. People will be in negative environments and literally like be really skinny, like anorexic. And I think it's just about stepping away from that. That's what I've had to done, or that's what I've had to do a couple times, living at home. Even recently, right now, before I moved back out, because I had to move home for like a year before I got my new apartment. And you just have to separate yourself as much as possible and be determined, um, and stay positive. Really, I think.
I like the bit about separating yourself because I like to do that a lot. So I'll come
Sure.
back to separating yourself. But then I also want to talk about something that I heard somebody say once that I think made a lot of sense. And she was saying, if you're going, anybody going through something would normally look for something to fill that void.
Hmm.
So let's say you're having issues at school, or you're not happy because your schoolwork or something else going on in your life. You'd
Hmm.
always lean or move towards something else that will fill that void and make you happy.
Hmm.
So whatever you're looking for, instead of looking for the negative bit, be looking for the positive bit. So
Hmm.
instead of looking for food to make you happy, go exercising.
Hmm.
Instead of looking for something negative, like a negative attitude, a negative activity, rather make it
Hmm.
a positive activity.
Yeah.
Currently, in my personal life, I'm going through a lot of stress
Hmm.
all around 360, lots of stress.
Hmm.
So instead of looking in this state, instead of looking for something, the fun bit to keep me going and just get me out of there, I'd rather
Hmm.
work because I'm
Yeah.
thinking every work I put in as an entrepreneur, quote and unquote, it
Hmm.
builds up my business because
Hmm.
everything you do builds up the business. So why not work? So I'd
Hmm.
rather use the positive bit, work towards building my career, myself, for my family, rather
Yeah.
than allowing depression to set in and then making me look something else and I'll
Yeah.
not be profitable to my family and all of that. And I think that made a lot of sense that
Hmm.
instead of the negative, why not look for something positive to fill in the void and keep you going? And then you realize that in the end, when you've come out of whatever state you found yourself in, you would have been a
Hmm.
better person and you would have rather appreciated the state in which you were rather than
Yeah.
cursing it. Because most of the things we go through, or most of the problems or situations we go through in life, depending on how you're looking at it, can make us better people rather
Yes.
than worse people. But it depends on how
Yes.
we
Yeah.
address it and how we face it and what we use that
Yeah.
moment for, basically. And I
Yeah.
think, in a nutshell, that was what you were trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I would say without my last relationship and how negative it was, I don't think I could have been as good of a partner as I am now to my girlfriend. And I don't think without the pain I went through as a child, I would know how to be a parent. And I'm not a parent yet, but I mean, I think I have a good idea on how to raise and like nurture a child in a way that they need. And even if my extreme loving and um, kind of way I intend to go about it, even if that's not pertinent. Some people say you can't be like that. You need some uh, like discipline or you need whatever. I mean, I'm happy to learn as I go along, and so I think a lot of the pain that I've gone through um, really has helped me grow. And like I wasn't really good with money because my parents just kind of would give me money and I would spend it. And I think without that, I wouldn't. I mean, obviously they could have taught me and I wouldn't have had to go through that. But I had to go through that, and now I am extremely frugal with with what I buy, and, so I think that that's true, that a lot of life's challenges may seem horrible, may seem like, why would I ever have to go through that? And I think at some level, maybe before this life you choose. Like, you choose to go through that. And I think it's really about learning and growing as a human and as a soul. And, I would say, yeah, work and just putting yourself into something productive. Distracting yourself is, like, one of the best medicines. That and going outside. Like, a lot of people don't just go outside and walk around in a park or something in the sun, and the sunlight really does boost your mood. Like, people are really depressed and they stay inside, and it's often hard in, like, these big cities. Like, I don't know if you live in London, but I know London is, a very large city. There's probably not a lot of areas, least I would think, that you can, like, get a big park. I don't know, I've never been, but, um, in in cities in the United States, it's just, like, you have to drive everywhere, and so you're in your house, you get in your car, it's covered up, you go into, like, a Walmart, you don't see much light, and I think getting out in the sunlight really does boost your mood as well, so if you could work outside, go outside with your computer and do something like that really would help boost your mood as well.
I like what you just said in there, but London is a big city and they built it such that people can commute by public transport. I believe they try to
Yeah.
keep the pollution down. So
Mhm,
there are big parks over there. I don't live in London. I live outside London, but I go to London once in a
mhm.
while. So I
Yeah.
know the place a little bit. But you went to an accelerated STEM program. That's a
Mhm.
state university at 16 years old.
Yes, yeah.
And this is really impressive. What was that experience like, and how did it affect your personal growth?
Well, so it changed my direction in career I wanted to go in, actually. So I was really interested in politics at a young age and, like, law. And then I kind of wanted to be a chemical engineer because I was like, they make money, I can do that. And so I went to this, I applied to these STEM schools. There are two in the state of Kentucky, which are funded partially by the state, and they accept people in. And I don't know what the terminology is in the UK, but in the US, it was my junior and senior year, which I would um, go to the university, um, and I realized very quickly I didn't like engineering, and it was too much work. I don't like it. The math, I can do it. It's just not fun and fulfilling, and I don't want to do that with my life. And I was taking political science classes, and I really enjoyed it, and it really reminded me of how I really liked politics at a young age and how I really wanted to be a lawyer and different things like that, and I would tell my parents I wanted to be the president. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but, uh, I'd like to work in politics somehow, but that really changed my direction there, and my experience was also extremely eye-opening and, like, just freeing, I think, in a way, because at 16, you're supposed to be in your last 2 years of high school, you're supposed to be living with your parents, and I was living in a dorm, across, like, an hour and 30 minutes away from where my parents, um, were living, and with just a bunch of people my age or a year older and, like, minimal, adult influence. I had my car there, so I drove around the city. It's not very big, it's not a very big city, but, it's a pretty rural, community up in the Appalachian Mountains, but it was extremely freeing and liberating, and it also helped me learn a lot of things from mistakes. So, like, partying or having fun out late at night. Like, I still did great in school, but, things that I realized I was doing to kind of just fit in with the crowd, I guess. Um, but it was really fun, and I met a lot of good friends there, and I've had a lot of good memories that I think will shape my life going forward. And it's also helped me a lot in school. So I mean, I got 2 years of college free, which in the US, college is extremely expensive. Um, People my age would be in probably double or maybe even triple the debt I'm in at this point. I still had to take on debt for my master's degree and a little bit for school, for my undergraduate degree, but I'm in a lot less debt than a lot of other people. So that helped me out a lot. I also got to meet a lot of people being in that school. I got to meet the governor, um, and I met, some bill so the school was originally founded or, like, funded by these billionaires, um, so I got to meet them. Um, they're fine, but they're in coal, so I don't know if I like that, but, at least I'm taking their coal money and putting it towards good use, so but yeah, it was a really good experience, I think.
Great. Do you think that your challenges as a child made you put a few things in place and say, I want better for myself? And for that reason, I'm going to be focused. Because at 16 years, children your age at that time will be thinking
Mhm.
of other things. You know what I mean? As a teenager, I'll be thinking of so many things
Mhm.
and may not have their head in the right space. But you did. What do you
Yeah,
think led to that?
um, I think it's a mixture of things. I think one, I don't know, from a young age, I always felt I knew I was meant for something more, and I didn't quite fit in at all. Like, I'd have friends at school, I would be friendly with people, but I never really had any, like, actual friends. Like, no one ever really came over, I never really went anywhere. I had a couple friends, but, who I hung out with outside of school, but around mid-middle school, I didn't really have them anymore. Um, and so I think I never really fit in anywhere, and I think that also helped me know that it's because I'm around people that I'm not supposed to fit in with. Like,
Yeah.
I'm around people that they might do great in their local town. They might be, but I feel like I'm meant for more. I don't feel like I'm meant to stay in this, like, rural community in Kentucky and work a normal job, which there's nothing wrong with all that. Like, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but I just feel like I've been meant for more. And I also think that I think seeing my parents as well, or seeing the people around me, and, like, my nana, she wanted to be a lawyer, but she had my mom at 16, and my uncle at 17, so she was very young. And at that time in the South in the United States, that was very much looked down upon. And so she had to work, and my great grandparents took care of my parents a lot. And so she didn't really get out of the hometown. And my mom didn't, and my dad didn't finish college. They dropped out and they just worked normal jobs. And they never really got to get out, which I don't know if my mother would have wanted to get out, but you know, I think there's a lot of ambition that maybe wasn't met, and I wanted to maybe meet that. And I've kind of had a determination in my life to really just meet those goals that maybe they didn't have. But I've always had, like, pretty big goals from a very young age. So I don't know exactly.
Wow, that's very interesting to know. But it looks like right from the get go, you knew what you wanted, so your head was
Yeah.
just there. And it's about
Yeah.
knowing your purpose. I think knowing your purpose is what drives an individual. Once you don't
Yeah.
know what you are in this world for, or what you were
Mhm.
created for, meant to be, that is when you keep wavering. But when you know what you are meant to be or what you are
Mhm.
here for, then you can just toe your part and be doing the right things. Thank
Yeah.
you very much for sharing that with us. You faced many academic and personal setbacks. Would you be willing to open up about a low moment or a low point in your journey and how you pulled through it?
Well, so after my breakup with the last person, I was with, we had an apartment together, and because we moved in, I moved in, she was in my grade, but she was a little bit younger than me, and so I was 18 and she didn't turn 18 until, like, the end of summer. So I had to basically put my name on the lease. I had to be on the lease and she wasn't on it. And so she whenever we broke up, she just left. And so my rent doubled, right?
Yeah.
So I was dealing with a lot of financial difficulties and I had to work like a lot. I was working all the time. And I had to neglect school. I didn't even really want to be working and I didn't want to be going to school because of how depressed and like negative I was feeling. But if I had to choose one, I was I was choosing to like feed myself and, afford the roof over my head.
Yeah.
So I was working a lot and I failed like 2 semesters of school. And I ended up being able to submit, I can't remember what it's called, but basically I submitted something to the school and like explained the situation and it wiped that off my transcript. And so I was able just to repeat the classes later on. And that actually did set me back because I was supposed to graduate. I had enough credits to graduate college a year into, like, leaving that extra or that early college program. So I would have graduated in I was set to graduate in 20 so I don't know, was that 2022, I think, May of 2022? And so I ended up not graduating until December of last year. So it did push me back, but I think it was also a learning lesson, but I got on track really once I met uh, Selena, my girlfriend. I think I was working a lot, and I ended up getting some roommates to fill up the other half, and I was kind of just working, and into that next semester, um, I really got things together. I think her positivity and her energy, I think, really helped. Um, but it was just also processing. It took me some time to process everything that had happened.
Well, you've got a rich understanding of politics, society, and spirituality. How have these elements helped you navigate life's challenges and reshaped your worldview?
Well, with spirituality, really about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, so I kind of rediscovered or like spirituality. At a young age, I was baptized in a Protestant church, so you have to choose to be baptized in those. You're not like just as a baby. Um, so I chose to be baptized in like early middle school, late elementary school. And I don't know if you know much about the new atheist movement, but in like the mid early 2000s, there were a lot of online atheists who
Mm.
would post on YouTube, and a lot of young people, watch those, and they like would debate religious people, and then I kind of got sucked into that, and I believed like I was an atheist for a while. Um, and I don't know, I can't explain it. I kind of just felt something. Um, Deeply spiritual. And I think the reason I ended up leaving the church was because the church is really dogmatic, right? The church has these views that I think are invented by man. So I believe in, God. I believe in uh, the message of Jesus, and but I also think that a lot of the spiritual leaders like Muhammad or the Buddha and all these different people are probably, you know, inspired by something divine, right? I think that they all kind of have a similar message. When you look at the similarities, there's a lot of like similarities, like the golden rule, a lot of things between religions. And I think that recently has shaped my life a lot when coming into spirituality, that I've been able to recognize how I got out of the things before. I really was not thinking about it in a spiritual lens or like in being positive the first time that I got out of, or even really the second time that I got out of like the extreme weight gain I had gotten, and or like how uh like the obesity and how I lost that weight, I really wasn't thinking about it in terms of positivity. But once I had that spiritual lens, I realized that really it's like positivity and what you put out in the world is what you get back. And I believe a lot in, I guess you could call it karma. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but it kind of explains what I believe, which is like, if you put out negativity, you're gonna get negativity, and it's just a loop. And so that has really changed my life now in the sense that I believe that I have a purpose. I didn't think I had an actual purpose. I just thought I really liked this thing and I wanted to do it. But now I see it as like kind of a life's mission that I don't really fully know, but I know that there's somewhere I'm going and I need to either in a content creation space or leading that into politics later, and just being positive in that way and like spreading that positivity. And politics really, I think, is my way of changing the world. I think I've been really interested in politics from a young age. And I think that the spirituality and politics really leading me to make changes. And I think we're in a very transformative time, especially in the United States when we have, the loss of the Democratic Party recently, the reelection of Donald Trump. Um, and I don't really, I didn't vote for him. I voted for Harris, but, I don't think Harris was the best candidate. And I think that Trump really is here to reset politics, right? It's gonna be a bad 4 years, but I think that the Democratic Party has been completely destroyed, and because of that, you can build up from the ashes. You can build up a new party that isn't as, beholden to the old ideas, which is why we've lost so much. And I think my message is to with spirituality and is to kind of put that out here in the party so that we can build up a better party that actually appeals to more people and wins and changes the world.
Well, I like your perspective on politics and all of that. Is that what your YouTube page is about? Is that the content you'll be creating on YouTube? Politics.
Yeah, yeah, so I actually wrote out I have a script for a video, that I want to put out, but I've been in the process of moving, so I haven't been able to make it yet, but it's gonna be about, it's not really about spirituality, but it's more about, the core issue in the United States, which is leading to, um, you know, the like, the lack of representation and the kind of ideas that are pushed in Congress, which Congress has, like, a 10, like, 15%, approval rating, and it's had that for decades, and yet the same people keep getting reelected and reelected, and they keep making the same decisions and the same decisions. And a lot of people say, we need term limits, we need this, we need that. And I think the core issue really is money in politics. So when you have billionaires able to give as much money as they want to candidates, they can run ads, which just get them reelected. That's the core issue is money. You need to limit the amount of money these candidates have. Second, I would say is probably like the elimination of the electoral college or things like that. But I think really it's money. Money is the big issue and lowering the size of congressional districts so they're more representative of the people. So increasing the number of representatives in Congress. But that's kind of what my video is going to be about. It's not as much spiritual, but I think I want to make videos about spirituality. But yeah, that's what my Pan Zeitgeist account is for.
Great. Looking back, what advice would you give to anybody currently surrounded by manipulative or toxic people but feeling trapped?
Well, I would consider Louis. Sorry, my cat's rubbing on. Let me get this real quick.
Right.
Louis, stop. You're pressing the button. Okay. Sorry. I would say that one, consider if you are trapped or not. Sometimes people feel trapped, which is a real feeling, but you may be trapped temporarily. So, like, I have been stuck, like, I was recently at home, and I felt like pulled back into these negative cycles and these negative emotions, and I felt trapped for a while because I had to move out because the roommates I had before were extremely messy and like rude and things like that. And so I moved back home instead of moving into a new apartment with them. And I felt trapped. And really, it just took time. I think having motivation and figuring out a plan. So I get that you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel stuck. You're going to feel heavy. Um, Breathe. I would say deep breaths, breathing into the nose and holding it and letting out the mouth is extremely helpful to reduce that stress. And then take time to meditate or focus on what you need to do. So if you're stuck at home in a family environment, which a lot of people are because of the economy and a lot of people are having to live at home at even older and older ages, think about what you need to do. Look at apartments, look at flats or whatever. I think in the UK, uh, look at the different things that you can do to get out of there, and be meticulous and also be patient. Being patient and being present is something that can be helpful, and find other things to do, like, and it doesn't have to be spending money. Like, you don't have to spend money to have to separate yourself. You don't have to go, you know, out with friends or this or that. Just go to a park and do stuff. Go to your local library and do things there. I think just separating yourself and trying to know that, or trying to, just feel better in a different environment, even when you do have to live there or be in that place. And just working through it, and I know that doesn't help a lot of people. A lot of people are, still struggling paycheck to paycheck, and they do have an apartment, and they're with a partner that, isn't the best, and they have kids and this and that, and it could be a lot harder, and I can't really tell you what to do in that instance because I haven't been there. But at least in the instances I've been in, I think separating yourself and finding that time, and really focusing on what you need to do to get out.
Great. I think that separating yourself is one very powerful tool that I'll
Mm,
say that when you find yourself in a place where you feel trapped or you're not really sure what is happening, separating
mhm.
yourself is a good thing because then you're not hearing too many voices. You're
Yeah.
listening to yourself and trying to internalize and retrace your journey backwards, where you
Mhm.
started from, how it's been, what are the good things and the bad things you've experienced, and trying to sort out. It's like you have a bag full of a lot of things, trying to separate the good or the chaff from the good ones. And
Mhm.
you can only do that when you've separated yourself, because then
Mhm.
you're not hearing too many voices that is trying to confuse you. But you as a
Yeah.
person trying to internalize and go through your experience by yourself and see where you went wrong, what went wrong for you, and all of those things would help you make the right decisions before you step out again and be able to know if that is good for me. If it's not good for me, what can I do better? How can I change it? Those kind of things. And I think that was what I was going to
Mhm.
talk about when I said separating yourself, and I'll come back to it, but I lost track of it. But it's good you
No, you're
mentioned
fine.
it again about, yeah, separating yourself. And for me, I think that has worked for me so many times. And I do
Mhm.
like to separate myself a lot. Growing up, I've been a quiet person growing up. Anybody
Mhm.
who's known me growing up will tell you I don't like trouble and I don't
Mhm.
want trouble to come to me. But I realize that even when you don't want trouble to come to you, that is when they're coming to you when you're not looking for trouble. So I've had to look
Mhm.
for ways to deal with those kind of troubles when they come to me. And I cut people off very quickly.
Yeah.
I cut you, I block you. I don't want to,
Yeah.
I don't want to have anything. Yeah. And
Mhm.
anybody looking at me from outside will say, she's full of herself. But I don't care. You
Yeah.
know, yesterday my daughter was, I think I was doing something. My daughter said, "Oh, don't you care what people say?" I told my daughter, "You don't know me too well, my dear,
Mhm.
because you should know that I don't care about what people say. It's about
Yeah.
me and what makes me feel happy. What
Yeah.
anybody wants to say is up to them, and what they're thinking about is up. I
Yeah.
don't care if you think I'm rude, if you think I'm not nice. Those who know I'm nice. And I'll only
Yeah.
be nice to those who are nice to me. People are
Yeah.
just nasty out there, and you
I
cannot
know.
allow, yeah, you cannot allow their nastiness to affect you. I cannot. And
Yeah.
I have too many things going on in this head. Like I always
Mhm.
say, there are certain things I can deal with, and there are
Mhm.
certain things I cannot deal with. I just have to go through it. But the
Yeah.
things that I can deal with, oh my God, definitely I will deal with it the way
Yeah.
I had to, such that I'll have my peace of mind. And I think that everybody should do this. It's worked for me so many times, and that is why I'm happy
Mhm.
to put it out there.
Yeah,
Cut people off when you have to. When they are
yeah,
too toxic, cut them off. You don't need that
mhm.
kind of toxicity around you. You cannot flourish in an environment like that.
Yeah, I
Too
also
toxic, yeah.
feel like those people send negativity your way by being negative. I feel like they're like, you know, they're like speaking it into existence, or, they're just perpetuating that negativity in your life. And I think cutting off those people really does help. Like, I know I felt so much better after I moved this past week, earlier this week on Tuesday, and I've felt so much more, like, at peace inside of myself. Um, and yeah, they spread a lot of negativity, but I would say also, um, that I agree with you in the sense that I can be talkative, and I would be talkative to people in class, but I'm a very quiet and, um private person. I don't really talk a lot about this is actually, like, getting into content creation is actually, um, the most I've talked about myself, uh, publicly. And so I think I am very in tune with separating myself and being quiet. I like private space, and I feel like I use it to recharge.
Yeah.
Oftentimes that's extremely helpful, and that some advice I can also give is, along with separating yourself, don't just separate yourself from the negativity and find someone else to be around, but taking time to yourself, being alone. And I think being alone with your thoughts and not being distracted by your phone or the TV, like sitting in your head, is something that's good to do, and something I've done a lot of. Um, and I would say cut off the people you can. Sometimes it's really hard to cut off people, like, if you're in a home environment with your parents, you kind of have to, but I would say I've gotten more in the, um, in the practice of cutting people off. Like, I'm going through some issues now, and people who weren't really being supportive or didn't really seem to actually support me, I didn't block them, but I just don't message them anymore, and I don't respond to them. And that's something that I think has also helped me a lot, because I feel like those people I thought were my friends were actually just, like, making this negativity in my life continue. And it's gotten a lot better since I've done that.
Wow. I'm happy we've been able to share this because there's a lot going on in the world. And trust me, I know a
Yes.
lot of people don't know how to navigate it. But
Mhm.
finally, what's next for Matthew? Your YouTube page and everything else, school life, what's next for you?
Well, so I took, a semester off of school. I'm still enrolled. I just took a semester off. And so this coming semester, I'll be back in school. Now that I'm moved into this apartment, I will be making probably content, relatively soon. So I'll be putting out videos, hoping that they have some traction, hoping that some people see it. It's probably more geared towards an American audience, just because it's talking about American politics. Um, but I hope that blows up and that I'm able to make some income from that, and kind of, spread that message and maybe improve the world. Um, I don't know. I guess that's really all that's up is content creation coming up. It may take a little bit just because I'm getting moved in, but we've we've made some pretty good progress so far. So it's looking good. You might see me on more podcasts. I don't know if I really wanting to do as many of these and just make videos, but you'll see if you stay in tune to my channel, maybe you'll see other ones. So
Would you like to put your channel name out there then?
it's Pan Zeitgeist. So Pan, Pan, and Zeitgeist, Zeitgeist, Tgeist is Pan Zeitgeist. So you can find me there on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. I will say that TikTok and Instagram have, like, basically nothing on it. And my YouTube just kind of has three or four videos, and, like, links to some podcasts I've been on. So you can check those out if you want.
Great. Matthew would like to say a massive, massive thank you for coming on podcast with Sheila today. And we wish you the very best in life. And one day I'll be happy to see you become the president of the United States, just as you said. And I'll
Yeah,
be excited
maybe.
to say, oh, he was once on my podcast.
Yeah,
And we wish you the very best.
I'll invite you to the White House. You can come.
I will be excited. I'll be
Yeah.
excited to come. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. If you've been listening in, this is season 2, episode 133 of our podcast series, where we bring seasoned guests with inspiring real life stories and experiences to share with us. Do not miss out on all these lovely experiences. Please subscribe and be notified when a new episode is released. While at it, please drop us a rating. In signing off, would like to say that life is what you make it. Remember, change begins with you. Until we meet again, have a brilliant week.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank
Bye.
you very much, Matthew. Thank you.